It's Thursday. Welcome back, everyone, for our sixth deep dive. We're going to be tackling something that I think we can all relate to.
Oh, yeah.
That is doubt. We're going to be exploring what it is, why it seems to trip us up so often, and most importantly, how can we navigate it? And for this exploration, we are joined by the wisdom of Gurudev
Always a good guide.
from his book, An Intimate Note to a Sincere Seeker. And we're going to be focusing specifically on his insights from the chapter, where he describes doubt as a kind of gray area.
Yeah. So think of this deep dive as your express lane to understanding how doubt is operating in your life,
Okay.
how it's subtly shaping your decisions, your experiences. And we're going to be giving you some very practical tools to cultivate greater clarity and confidence.
I like it.
You know, one of the most fascinating insights that we'll be exploring from the source material is this curious tendency we all have to question positive experiences much more intensely than negative ones.
It is a curious blind spot.
Why is that?
Yeah, why is that?
Why do we do that?
I mean, we'll dissect a compliment for like hidden motives,
Yeah.
but we'll just swallow criticism whole.
Totally.
Like, yep, okay,
It's the truth.
that's the truth.
Sure, you're right.
So Gurudev, he kind of paints this picture of doubt as this gray area.
Yes.
It's neither yes nor no. It's this restless mental hum that just clouds our judgment.
It creates fog,
Yes.
mental fog.
So his proposition is that seeing things with a greater degree of clarity, almost like black and white, is the key to quieting this internal static.
Yes. It's like our mind almost has like a built-in negativity bias.
Interesting.
Right. It's
Yeah.
like doubt acts as this like misplaced protector. It more readily questions the joy and the success because those states, they just feel less familiar or maybe even less safe to our default like wary setting, right? So this gray area, it's not just passive uncertainty. It's often like an active questioning of the good.
Wow.
Yeah.
So let's dig into this gray area a bit deeper.
Okay.
I mean, if it's this in-between state, how does it actually manifest in our daily lives?
Yeah, well, let's think about some real-world examples of how this plays out,
Yeah.
especially in terms of our skepticism towards positive experiences. So, for example, you might find yourself wondering, does my partner really mean what they're saying? You know, you're always kind of on the lookout for a hidden agenda.
Oh, yeah.
But on the other hand, when someone expresses anger or frustration towards you, do you subject that to the same level of scrutiny?
Probably not.
Probably not.
It just feels real.
Right, it feels real. Similarly, we tend to attribute successes to luck or external factors, you know,
Yeah.
downplaying our own role,
Oh, yeah.
while a failure feels so personal, undeniably true.
Yeah.
So why this asymmetry?
Right. Why are we more likely to believe
Yeah.
the negative things than the positive things?
Why is it so easy to doubt the good?
It's like our default setting is suspicion when things are going well.
Yeah, it's like we can't quite believe it, right?
And Gurudev links this directly to indecision, doesn't he?
Yes, he does.
He's saying that doubt flourishes when we're straddling the fence,
Yeah.
unable to fully commit to a perspective
Well,
or a choice.
he says that when we accept a situation or a person as one thing or another, you know, honest or dishonest, capable or incapable, it brings a certain stillness to the mind.
Right. It's that constant mental ping-ponging
Exactly.
that keeps the engine of doubt running.
Yeah, it's exhausting.
It is exhausting.
Yeah.
So to kind of make this hit home for you, the listener, our sources pose some really thought-provoking questions
Okay.
for personal reflection. So let's consider a few.
Right?
Do you ever find yourself instantly dismissing a compliment? Maybe even feeling a little bit awkward about it, yet you can replay a critical remark in your head for days,
Yeah.
right?
It's like we take in the bad so easily, but the
Yeah.
good, it's like
It's suspect.
it bounces right off.
Yeah.
Or how about this? Have you ever experienced like a moment of pure happiness and then immediately braced yourself for something bad to happen?
Oh, yeah.
Like we have a happiness quota and
Yeah.
we're just waiting for the bill to arrive. But when sadness hits, we rarely question its validity.
It just is.
It just is.
And here's one that really resonates with me. Have you ever hesitated to trust your own intuition?
Ooh, that gut feeling.
That gut feeling,
Yeah.
but then quickly believe your anxieties and fears, even when there's no concrete evidence to support them.
Wow, these are the patterns that Gurudev is illuminating our minds for whatever reason. It was, you know, often rooted in past experiences or maybe like ingrained beliefs. We seem to be predisposed to cling to uncertainty, particularly when it comes to positive affirmations or our own potential. But here's the good news. It's not a life sentence.
Oh, good.
We have the power to choose trust
Okay.
over doubt.
So how do we do that? Because that's where it gets really interesting, right?
It does.
Gurudev offers this powerful twist
Okay.
to our usual approach to doubt.
Yeah.
Instead of dissecting and doubting all the good things in our lives,
Yeah.
the love, the success, the compliments, he's saying, hey, turn that critical lens onto the doubt itself.
Question the doubt.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So instead of constantly questioning, is this good thing genuine? Is it sustainable? We should be asking, what is the origin of this doubt?
What am I afraid of?
What am I afraid of?
Yeah.
So like, for example,
Mm-hmm.
instead of getting caught in that loop of, does this person truly care about me?
Right.
The pivot becomes, why am I questioning their care in the first place?
Interesting.
Right.
So it's like making the doubt the object of your scrutiny, not the good fortune that you've encountered.
I like that.
Yeah.
So it's like we're really turning it around.
We're getting curious.
Yeah.
The doubt.
And when we do that, we often discover that fear in all of its various forms. Is it the root of it?
Your fear of vulnerability, fear of disappointment,
Yeah.
fear of failure,
Yeah.
and even sometimes fear of happiness.
I was going to say, all of these can masquerade as doubt.
Yeah, like, oh, this is too good to be true.
Yeah.
It can't possibly last.
Right.
So it's this underlying fear of the unknown that seems to keep us trapped in this gray area.
It keeps us in that uncomfortable limbo. Yeah. But what's fascinating is that the sources are suggesting that a surprising pathway to freedom
Okay.
is to actually embrace uncertainty.
To embrace the unknown.
Yeah.
To let go of the need for guarantees.
Right, because the relentless pursuit of absolute certainty is often what fuels anxiety.
Okay.
So when we can make peace with the inherent unpredictability of life, the grip of doubt starts to loosen.
So what are some steps we can take? I mean, it sounds great in theory, but how do we actually dismantle the power of doubt?
Well, Gurudev offers some concrete steps.
Okay, let's hear it.
The first is decision-making.
Okay.
Make a choice. Take a stand. And commit to it.
Right.
Even if you don't have absolute clarity.
Yeah.
At that moment.
So stop with that endless mental debate.
Stop the back and forth.
Pick a side.
Make a choice and act in alignment with it.
And the second key point is that we need to reframe our understanding of trust.
Oh, absolutely.
It's not about having all the proof
Yeah.
or having a crystal ball.
No, it's a conscious choice.
Okay.
It's a leap of faith.
It's about being willing to take that first step, even if the whole staircase isn't illuminated.
I like that.
Yeah.
Trust is an active verb.
Yes, it is.
Okay? And then the final practical suggestion is that we have to let go of the fear
Fear.
that underpins our doubts. It's so easy to cling to doubt thinking it's protecting us.
Yeah, we think it's a shield, protecting us from pain.
Yeah, but it can actually keep us stuck.
But ironically,
Mm.
it often keeps us stuck in a cycle of anxiety, preventing us from fully experiencing joy
Yeah.
and growth.
So it's more like a cage than a shield.
Exactly.
I mean, thinking about all of this, it makes me think about a time in my own life
Okay.
where I was just constantly plagued by doubts about my chosen career path. You know, should I be doing something else? Should I be doing something more? You know, I was so fixated on finding the perfect answer that I was totally immobilized
Yeah.
by indecision.
Frozen by doubt. So
Yeah.
what shifted that for you?
It was really the realization that the doubt itself was the primary obstacle. And the moment I stopped striving for absolute certainty, and I just decided to trust the journey, you know, to commit to the path I was on, despite the uncertainties, I felt this incredible release. There was this deep sense of peace in just accepting my current reality and focusing on moving forward.
It's so powerful to hear you say that because it really highlights the message that doubt often hinders our progress. More than making the so-called wrong decision, it keeps us stuck in stagnation.
So for you listening, think about a time when doubt held you captive. What if instead of fighting that uncertainty, you had embraced it just a little bit more?
How might your experience have unfolded differently?
That's a good question. So let's move into some actionable strategies
Okay, I like it.
that we can all implement in our daily lives. To tackle this doubt head on, the first thing is we need to cultivate the habit of observing our doubts.
Become a doubt detective.
Yes. So when you feel that familiar nagging sensation creeping in, pause, ask yourself, is this doubt rooted in any tangible evidence? Or is it just my old pattern of negative thinking?
You know that self-awareness is so critical.
It is. Because we so often react to doubt on autopilot.
We do.
Yeah, we don't even stop to think.
You don't question it.
Is this real? Is this valid?
So by observing it, we create separation. We can start to see it for what it often is, just a thought, not a truth.
Okay, so the second practical tip is that we need to actively redirect our mental focus.
Okay.
So instead of automatically doubting the positive aspects of our lives or our capabilities, make a conscious effort to question the negative thoughts that surface.
So if you catch yourself thinking, I'm not good enough, counter that with, is that objectively true?
Ooh, I like that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Turn it around. What evidence do I have
Yeah.
to support that claim?
Okay, and then the third step,
Yeah.
and I think this one's huge, is that we need to take action
Yes.
despite the presence of doubt.
Action is the antidote
Yeah.
to doubt.
It's so easy to get stuck
It is.
in our heads,
Ruminating.
ruminating.
Yeah.
And actually that amplifies the doubt.
It does. Whereas taking action, even small steps, can weaken doubt's grip.
Yeah, it's like don't wait for the doubt to disappear.
Exactly.
Just move through it.
I'll move through it.
Okay, now this next suggestion aligns beautifully with Gurudev's emphasis on inner stillness, which is breath work
Breath work.
and meditation.
Meditation.
A calm mind is naturally less susceptible to that disruptive influence of doubt.
Right. It's like creating that space where clarity can emerge.
Yeah.
And when the mind is still, doubt has less fertile ground to take root.
Okay, I like that. And then the final practical piece of advice is this idea of surrendering
Surrender.
to life's flow.
Yeah.
We don't need all the answers right now.
You don't.
Trust that the clarity will emerge and resist that urge to force certainty where it doesn't yet exist.
It's like trusting the timing of your life.
Yeah. Now, Gurudev also provides a really interesting perspective
Okay.
on this relationship between doubt and distance.
Doubt and distance.
He says doubt grows when there is distance.
Interesting.
And this can be emotional distance in our relationships, physical distance, or even a spiritual disconnection from our own inner selves.
From our true nature.
Yeah.
So, when we feel connected to someone, we're much less likely to doubt them.
Right.
But when there's that separation, those seeds of suspicion can take root.
Yeah, and that same principle applies to the relationship we have with ourselves.
Well, absolutely.
If we're disconnected from our own values, self-doubt becomes much more powerful.
That inner critic gets really loud.
Yeah. So the antidote then is to actively bridge these gaps.
Bridge the gaps.
If you're experiencing self-doubt, reconnect with your strengths, your values.
Yeah.
Doubting someone else, have that open and honest communication.
Yeah, rebuild that trust.
And if you're feeling kind of a general unease
Yeah.
about life, maybe it's time to deepen your spiritual practices.
Yeah, reconnect to something bigger.
Okay, I like it.
Reconnection is a powerful antidote to doubt.
And then on a more immediately practical level, our sources offer this really simple, yet powerful cognitive shift. Instead of always focusing on, what if this goes wrong?
Right.
Try asking, what if this goes right?
Ooh, I love that shift in perspective.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's so simple, but it can be so powerful
It really can.
because it just redirects that mental energy
Oh.
away from those potential pitfalls.
Yeah.
And towards possibility.
Yes, possibility thinking.
Okay, another key insight is this idea of trusting our direct experiences.
More than our thoughts.
Yeah.
Because doubt often comes from overthinking
Yes, it does.
and endless analysis. Whereas our lived experiences, they can give us a much clearer sense of the truth.
Yeah, our thoughts can be so persuasive,
They can.
but they're also often based on biases and fears and past conditioning.
Exactly.
So pay attention to what you've actually felt, what
Yeah.
you've witnessed firsthand.
Lived experience.
Yeah, not just what your mind is.
Telling you. Yeah.
Okay, and finally, the sources talk about the importance of actively strengthening our faith.
Cultivating.
Yeah, whether that's faith in ourselves,
Yeah.
in the people around us, or in something greater. It can make a huge difference
It really can.
in diminishing that power of doubt.
Because faith, it's a choice to lean towards trust. It's a belief in the positive, even when the evidence isn't fully clear.
So the more we nurture that inner sense of faith,
Yeah.
the less fertile ground doubt has.
Exactly.
Okay, so to bring this deep dive full circle, Gurudev reminds us that doubt itself is inherently unstable.
Yeah, he compares it to trying to stand with one foot on each shore, never fully committing to either.
Yeah.
That creates so much tension.
It does.
So the key is to choose a direction.
Any direction.
Any direction.
To gain your balance
Yeah.
and move forward.
That's how we overcome that inner tug of war.
Okay, so to sum it all up, doubt's a natural part of life, but it can become really limiting.
Especially when it comes to embracing the good,
Yeah.
the positive aspects of our lives
Yeah.
and our own potential.
So Gurudev's central message is that we can move beyond doubt.
Mm-hmm.
by cultivating clarity. We do that by making decisions, even amidst uncertainty, questioning the doubts themselves.
Not the good.
Yeah, and embracing uncertainty as part of life's journey.
Beautiful. So let's start with something we all experience.
Yeah.
Fear. That familiar feeling of anxiety, that knot in your stomach when you sense danger. Now, the interesting thing is, as your sources point out, the danger we perceive might be a real, tangible threat, or, and this is the kicker, it might be completely fabricated by our own minds.
Right, right. Like how many times have you worried about something that never actually happened?
Yeah.
I know I've been there countless times. Our minds have a knack for conjuring up the worst case scenarios, don't they?
They really do. But here's where things get really fascinating. Gurudev describes fear as love turned upside down. And at first, that might sound a bit paradoxical, but when you think about it, it actually makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, think about it this way. When we love someone deeply, we're willing to go to great lengths to protect them, to face challenges head on for their well-being. That strength and courage, that comes from love, right?
Right, exactly. It's like that fierce protectiveness a parent feels for their child.
Exactly. But now imagine that same protectiveness, that same intensity getting tangled up with worry, with insecurity, with uncertainty. Suddenly that love can twist, it can morph into fear. And that's where we start to see that upside down quality that Gurudev talks about.
It's almost like fear is a shadow side of love. So how do we start to work with that, untangle those knots of fear?
Well, the first step, and this comes up repeatedly in your sources, is awareness. Simply noticing that fear is present, without judgment, without immediately trying to push it away or berate yourself for feeling it.
Kind of like acknowledging a storm cloud in the sky. You see it, you recognize it's there, but you don't have to get swept away by it.
Exactly. And then the key is to question the validity of that fear. Is this a real and present danger I'm facing, or is it an echo of past experiences, old anxieties resurfacing?
And this is where the breath comes in, right? I mean, we've all felt that tightness in our chest, that shallow, rapid breathing when fear takes over.
Oh, absolutely. And it's like a vicious cycle. The more we panic, the more constricted our breathing becomes, which in turn just amplifies those feelings of fear and anxiety. But Gurudev reminds us, your breath is the bridge between the body and the mind. If you can regulate your breath, you can regulate your emotions. So those deep conscious breaths, those are not just some new age woo-woo thing. They have a real physiological impact.
It's so true. Like, even just taking a few moments to slow down and breathe deeply can completely shift your internal state. It's like hitting the reset button on your nervous system.
It is. It really is. And that's why breathwork and meditation are such powerful tools for managing fear. They help us to create that space between ourselves and the emotion so we're not so overwhelmed by it.
And your sources also suggest a really interesting exercise. Think back to a time when fear held you back. A path you didn't take, an opportunity you missed because you let fear dictate your actions. And then picture what could have happened if you had acted despite that fear. It's almost like rewriting the script of your past, but it can be really powerful for reframing how we view fear in the present.
It can be really eye-opening.
Yeah.
It allows us to see that often the things we fear the most aren't nearly as terrifying as our minds make them out to be. And that's where those practical steps for conquering fear come in. First, acknowledge the fear. Don't try to bury it or pretend it's not there. Second, shift your focus to what could go right. Instead of fixating on all the potential negative outcomes, what if you focused on the positive possibilities?
I like that. It's about choosing where you direct your attention, right? It's like consciously choosing to look at the light instead of getting stuck in the shadows. And then what?
Then you take small steps. Remember, you don't have to conquer your fear all at once. Even tiny actions taken in the face of fear can have a huge impact. And finally, strengthen your faith. This might be faith in yourself, in a higher power, or simply in the natural unfolding of life.
It's about cultivating that inner trust, that belief that things will ultimately work out, even when it feels scary or uncertain.
Exactly. So we've talked about bringing the light of awareness to our fears, using the breath to calm the nervous system, and taking concrete steps to move forward despite those fears. And remember, as your sources remind us, fear is like a shadow. It can only exist in the absence of light. And that light, that's our awareness, our courage, our willingness to face those fears head on.
Okay, so we've explored the territory of fear. Now let's shift gears a bit and delve into another equally powerful internal state, doubt. And here again, Gurudev offers a really insightful description. He calls doubt a gray area, that in-between space where we're neither here nor there, our foot neither on the shore nor on the other. And that lack of clarity, that can be a breeding ground for anxiety and inaction.
It can be absolutely paralyzing, can't it? We get so caught up in those mental loops of should I or shouldn't I, what if this happens, what if that doesn't work out, that we end up stuck in a state of indecision. And what's even more intriguing is this observation from your sources. We often doubt positive things far more readily than negative ones. We might question a sincere compliment, but readily accept a criticism. We might doubt our moments of joy or happiness, but fully embrace feelings of sadness or anger.
It's like we almost have a built-in negativity bias sometimes. Why do you think that is?
That's a great question, and it's something that psychologists and neuroscientists are still trying to fully unravel. But one theory is that it might be an evolutionary hangover. Back in the day, our ancestors had to be constantly vigilant to threats. So being hyper-aware of potential dangers, that was a survival mechanism.
So we're hardwired to be more sensitive to the negative, even if it means overlooking the positive.
It's a possibility. But here's the good news. We don't have to be slaves to our evolutionary programming. We can learn to recognize this tendency and actively work with it. And one of the most effective ways to do that, according to Gurudev, is to choose to see doubt in black and white terms.
So no more lingering in that gray area.
Exactly. Instead of getting stuck in that nebulous maybe, make a conscious decision. Either trust the situation or person fully, or decide it's not right for you and move on. And even if that means accepting a potentially negative outcome, the act of making a choice, of taking a definitive stance, can bring a surprising sense of clarity and relief.
Okay, that makes sense. But then your sources introduce this really mind-bending concept, doubt the doubt itself. It's like a philosophical judo move.
It is, isn't it? And it can be incredibly powerful. So instead of getting caught in the trap of doubting whether we're good enough, smart enough, capable enough, we flip the script. We turn that skepticism back on itself and question the validity of those doubts.
So if you're doubting whether you can achieve a goal, you question the belief that you're incapable. If you're doubting someone's love for you, you doubt the belief that you're unlovable.
Exactly. You shared that great story about your friend who was wrestling with self-doubt about a job opportunity. She was convinced she wasn't qualified, that she wouldn't get the position, but the moment she shifted her perspective and started to doubt those feelings of inadequacy, to question those ingrained beliefs about herself, everything changed.
It's amazing how much power we give to those limiting beliefs, isn't it? They can become these self-fulfilling prophecies if we let them. But just like with fear, there are concrete actions we can take to work with doubt. Your sources highlight several. First, become aware of your doubts, especially when they're directed towards positive things. Second, make a decision and move on. Either trust and fully commit or walk away. Don't get stuck in that energy-draining limbo.
Right. And third, reverse the doubt. Actively question those underlying insecurities that are fueling your doubts. Then, practice gratitude. Focusing on what you're grateful for naturally diminishes the mental space for doubt. And finally, trust the process. Sometimes we can't see the whole picture, but that doesn't mean things aren't unfolding as they should.
Trust that life has a way of working things out, even when the path ahead seems unclear. And as Gurudev emphasizes, choosing to see doubt in black or white terms, that's essential for moving forward.
He gives a really helpful example. You can acknowledge that someone has acted dishonestly, but that doesn't negate the connection you have with them. You can hold both truths simultaneously. And the same applies to our own internal struggles. We can recognize our flaws and weaknesses without letting them define us. And that's how we start to gain conviction, to move out of that disempowering gray area of doubt and step into a place of clarity and confidence.
So we've explored the turbulent realms of fear and doubt, and now let's turn our attention to something that might seem like the complete opposite: silence. But as your sources beautifully illustrate, silence isn't simply the absence of sound. It's a profoundly rich and fertile space.
Absolutely. It's so often misconstrued as emptiness, as a void. But in reality, as your sources describe it, silence is full, alive, and powerful. It's a wellspring of clarity, creativity, and deep inner peace.
And Gurudev's teaching on silence, that really resonates with me. He says it's not just about being quiet externally, it's about cultivating an inner stillness, a state where the mind settles and wisdom naturally arises.
And think about it. How many times have you had a flash of insight, a creative breakthrough, or a moment of deep understanding while you were in a quiet, contemplative state?
It happens all the time. It's like the answers we seek are already within us, and silence allows us to access them.
Exactly. And there's also a profound healing power to silence. It provides us with the space to process difficult emotions that might be swirling beneath the surface, to release negativity we've been unconsciously holding on to, and to reconnect with that deep well of inner peace that's always there, even when we're not consciously aware of it.
So how do we access that space, that inner sanctuary of silence amidst all the noise and chaos of modern life? The sources offer some really practical tips. First, consciously unplug from digital distractions. Put down your phone, step away from the computer. Give your mind a break from that constant influx of information and stimulation.
Then, create dedicated time for stillness. Even just 5 or 10 minutes a day of sitting quietly without any agenda can make a world of difference.
It's about giving yourself permission to simply be without having to do anything. And then there's the practice of observing your thoughts without getting caught up in them. Notice them as they arise, but don't engage in that endless mental chatter. Just let them pass like clouds drifting across the sky.
And of course, meditation. As Gurudev says, meditation is the journey from sound to silence, from movement to stillness. And there are countless techniques and approaches to meditation, so it's really about finding what resonates with you.
And think about your own experiences. Have there been times when you felt that deep sense of inner stillness, perhaps while walking in nature, listening to music, or just enjoying a quiet moment alone?
Those are the moments where we get a glimpse of that profound peace that's always available to us if we just create the space for it.
So some practical ways to invite more silence into your life. Begin your day with a few moments of quiet reflection before diving into the demands of the day. Take silence breaks throughout the day, even just a minute or two of conscious stillness. Practice deep listening when others are speaking, really tuning into what they're saying without formulating your response in your head. And of course, embrace silent meditation as a regular practice.
And remember, the essence of silence isn't about achieving some kind of blank slate in the mind. It's about observing that constant stream of thoughts and emotions without judgment, without getting swept away by them. It's in those moments of stillness, of deep inner listening, that we discover our true nature, the part of us that exists beyond the limitations of language and thought.
It's like we finally get to meet ourselves without all the masks and filters we usually wear. And in that space of deep inner silence, answers to our questions can arise effortlessly, and peace becomes not something we have to chase, but a natural state of being.
It's about understanding life on a deeper, more intuitive level, beyond the limitations of words and mental activity.
So, as we bring this deep dive to a close, it's clear how these three seemingly disparate concepts, fear, doubt, and silence, are actually deeply interconnected. Understanding how fear can be a distorted manifestation of love, how doubt can trap us in a cycling uncertainty, and how silence, far from being empty, is a wellspring of profound wisdom and peace, all of this can help us to navigate our internal world with greater clarity, courage, and compassion.
And the tools we've explored today, cultivating awareness, utilizing the breath, questioning our doubts, embracing the transformative power of silence, these are all starting points for your own continued exploration and growth.
Absolutely. And here's a final thought for you to consider. Think about one area of your life where you're currently experiencing either fear or doubt. And then commit to creating just 5 minutes of complete silence for yourself today. Put down your phone, step away from the screens, close your eyes, and just be. You might be surprised at what insights or shifts in perspective emerge from that space of stillness. Thanks for joining us for another deep dive.